Just avoid the too many if you can.
Okay.
So,
Oh, wait.
Today we're talking about one of the most misunderstood aspects of being an immigrant. What is that?
that we're not all good at math.
The visa trumpets?
The H1-B visa.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ayo, Misfits! We're back again to help you kick ass in your career and build your personal brand. We're Pavi and Nami, and we have a guest today. His name is Moby, and he does all the things. Tell us, Moby.
So I work on an H1-B visa at a big tech company, and I also have a podcast. It's called The Fire Show, and it's Austin's podcast about entrepreneurship.
Also, side note, Moby is probably the most well-connected person I know because literally everyone I ever look up on Facebook or LinkedIn comes up as one mutual connection, Moby. And I was like, of course.
I get around.
Business partner now and forever. Hold up, Forever 21. 21 gun salute, salute your shorts. Kaboosh! I just free associated all over the mustache.
This may come as a surprise, but as the most heavily accented person of the group, I am the only citizen here. There's one thing that is a huge point of contention with a lot of people from our community, which is the H1-B visa and the many restrictions it has. So, first of all, we wanted to bring Moby on because he's actually doing cool stuff within those limitations, and he's one of those people who's really enterprising and wants to do something entrepreneurial but has to stay within those bounds. So we'll give you some pearls of wisdom on what you can do. And then we're also going to talk about the things that people don't understand about the H1B and why it is such a pain in the butt. As the resident non-expert, I'm going to ask you guys questions.
It's so sweet that you're being an ally.
I
It's
know.
yeah, it's
So
like,
nice.
I'm the sweetest. So question 1, what is the H1B visa, guys?
So the H1B is a specialty visa. It exists to bring technically talented people in the US and let them stay here. It requires a bachelor's degree, and it's usually highly educated, highly skilled people in the US coming out from outside.
Our priority is to make this process easy for each and every one of you.
Not you, not you. No way. Nice try. Not you. Oh, wait, he's good. Come on in, bud. Aw, no.
So it's a visa given to you after your degree for you to work in a company that actually makes you do that same kind of job. So it's not like you get a degree, you get this visa, and you can work at, say, something completely the opposite, like working at Starbucks, but you got an engineering degree. So
The company sponsor you for that job.
You can only do it if you're at bachelor's or master's level, right? Or higher. So
That's
there's
true.
nothing that's if you have an associate's degree or something, you can't get an H1B. I know that I've gotten my share of comments about, people just not understanding what the H1B is or what a visa is and what the limitations are. What are some crazy, people who have no idea have told you?
Sure, go for it.
One of the things that I get all the time, maybe once every 2 weeks, is why don't you get married? As if my purpose is just to get married and stay in the US. Yeah, sorry, Mom.
Speed dating your mom now.
I was married at your age. You don't even want to learn how to cook dal.
Yeah. So you're saying for the green card?
Yeah, not for fun.
Yeah, not.
I get the comments that I usually get are about, people not understanding that even a work visa expires, you run out, you have to renew it, and there's limitations on how many times you can renew that visa.
Yeah, and people don't start their H1B careers just wanting to stay in the US. I didn't want to stay here and live here until 2 years into my H1. It was just a thing to get experience. Well, yeah. But now I'm here and they won't let me go.
There's only a limited number of companies that will sponsor this visa because first of all, it's expensive, it's limited, and finding your kind of career, if you're a petroleum engineer in Houston, there's more companies that might be, but if you have a very special degree, there's not very many jobs out there. And then there's 100%. A limitation on if you're a bachelor's degree, it's a little harder to get. Master's degree gets a little easier. PhD gets easier than that, access wise and getting towards your H1 going to green card. But as a bachelor's degree myself, I was gonna just be here forever.
Yeah, no, this time I got an email with my extension saying with your bachelor's degree, how you started off, you're not gonna get the H1 extension. And I was like, well, I've done a master's, and they were like, okay, you're fine.
Oh, nice.
Oh my God.
And
so saved by a bunch of money in debt.
Going off that, what are some of the problems? Because I really don't think that people understand how freaking difficult it is when you're an immigrant on an H1B visa, or any visa for that matter, but especially for the purposes of our channel and our conversation, it's not that easy. I've gotten a lot of, well, why don't you just get a visa? Here's why. Let's talk about it.
Well, I'll talk about my story and then you can talk about
Yeah.
yours. I only have my bachelor's degree. They have like a lottery system for. I think it's for all of them. They have a lottery system, which I've never won the lottery, so I feel like I was
You
pretty
never
sure
won
I
the
would.
lottery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I never have. So when I graduated and I applied for the H1-B, there was a lottery system, and again, like I said, the pool is smaller for an undergrad versus a grad student. I was in a small pool, and I didn't actually get through that lottery. I actually left the country and lived in Canada for 2 years,
Wow.
which was amazing, but cold.
Hey. And yeah, you have to leave. That's huge.
Yeah.
Actually, companies put in 3 applications for the H1, knowing that one will not go through.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's positivity right there.
Katie, this is your night. Don't let the haters stop you from doing your thing.
Optimism.
Yeah. So, okay, so then from the H1, what are the steps? So you get your H1 and then, like, why don't you just get a green card, guys?
Yeah, you cry heavily first.
Yeah.
And then,
Never done that. No.
yeah. So then there's 3 levels with H1. I believe it's like the EB1, EB2, EB3. Those are levels based on your job. So if you're a very junior engineer or junior technical profession, you start as an EB3. And EB3, when they file for your green card, it takes even longer. EB2 is a little bit more senior. EB1s go faster. So usually I think PhDs can go through that. I know friends who have applied as EB3. They have children now here in America, and they are still on their H1B.
Yeah.
They're waiting for their kids to turn 18 and sponsor them.
People from India and China, it takes 10 years at least.
Yeah.
I don't know about those systems. I'm in the process right now. I'm ignorant. Blissfully. I don't want to ask
You're
you.
just putting that good juju out there. I
Exactly.
was one of those people who was just like upset all the time. So I like your positive spirit. It probably would have helped me in this anger management issues. But
Yeah, stress management.
So I know that a lot of my friends who are on H1s, they have to be super careful about when and where they can travel, right? So what's the deal with that?
So if you have, if you're under renewal and you've done the 3-year renewal, until your renewal actually goes through, you have a travel ban on you. You have to leave the country to get an H1B renewed, and that they prefer you leave and go to your home country versus going to like Canada or Mexico. 1, because they worry that you might not come back, so they prefer you get stuck in your home country versus somewhere else, and 2, because it's just easier when they see, okay, this is your residence, like in the US consulate. But a lot of times, people like us, home is actually America, so it's a little harder when you're like, my home country is, I'm an Indian citizen, but I've never lived there, so it's like, I don't want to actually get stuck there because I'm like, my home is here and my home is the Middle East. So like it was a hard one when I had to go back there, and it didn't make sense.
I use that as an excuse to go home and get fat.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you legit went home. Like,
I went home. I was home.
I mean, if you can't get out of the country for this, out of fear that you may not be able to come back in, imagine if your entire family lives in another country. You came here as a student and then you started working here. Now you can't go back for 4 years to see your family. Can you imagine how tough that must be? So what are some like absurd / annoying things about this whole H1B process?
I just moved here from Africa. So if you're from Africa, why are you white?
I know filling out paperwork is kind of ridiculous. The stuff you fill out for renewals, they literally will ask you, are you coming to this country as a prostitute? And a lot of times,
Of course.
skilled AF. But yeah.
You do need a master's degree for that.
That's true. I don't find much annoying. The restrictions for me are annoying, and I know we're going to get into it.
Yeah.
It's just, it's hard. You can't change jobs within your team as well, or your role can't change.
Right.
You can't even switch jobs in the same company.
Yeah.
Or you have to do a lot of paperwork. And if you're in the green card process, while in the H1, if you change your job, the green card process resets.
With spouses, if you're an H1 and then, they see parents, they always want to hook you up with people from home. And if it's another person who's on an H1 or an H4, it is double the burden. It's not like a tax return. It's still 2 visas to work.
It's like they're importing people.
Yeah.
No, and speaking of which, work authorization for H4 is going on.
It was
spouse?
briefly introduced, and
So spouses who come, so if you have an H1 and you bring your spouse and your spouse gets on an H4, they can't work. So good luck with that. So now, happy things. Doodaloo, doodaloo, doodaloo. Okay.
I always do this dance.
I know, yeah. So the real reason we had Moby here was the fact that he's one of those people who actually is, really enterprising, wants to do something entrepreneurial, but has figured out like cool ways to keep up that entrepreneurial spirit and still stay within the bounds of what's legally allowed. And I know that a lot of our friends are, wanting to do something, but they don't know what their options are.
Yeah.
So what do you do and how do you toe that line?
Yeah, well, you can do anything as long as it's a hobby and it's classified legally as a hobby. I mean, there's no legal classification, but...
Don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious.
Making content, Instagram, YouTube, it can be classified as a hobby unless you make it a business.
Yeah.
And I make content like a crazy person as a hobby. Like podcasting, videos, I sometimes host events, like free panels, and I just do that until I go crazy.
Nice. So how often do you do all of that?
My definition of crazy is one podcast episode every Monday, one video every Friday, 3 social posts, and one event a month.
Wow.
That's,
That is a lot.
Yeah.
So
I like the material.
Yeah.
I love it. I love connecting with people and just making this stuff, and it gets me by.
So essentially what you're doing is building your brand.
Yes.
So you're digging the well before you need the water.
So that's the only restriction, that you can't get paid for it? Or how do you know, like, can you put up a free event at, a co-working space, or is it limited where you can do free events, of what kind of event you can do?
You can do anything that a U.S. citizen would reasonably be expected not to get paid for. Yeah. So Austin, everyone does free events.
Yeah.
Everyone does podcasting for free. Everyone makes videos for free unless you make it a business. That's in no way considered a point.
So can you do, like, on Instagram, would you say some company finds you, can you do a sponsored post?
That is great. It depends. It's up to your risk exposure. I don't. Anything that comes close to me just towing the line, I don't do it. I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
worth it.
You always know if Alexa's listening, she knows.
Alyssa, what time is it? What the hell is wrong with this blasted thing? Amanda!
What about volunteering? Can you volunteer?
You can't volunteer at a place in which someone else would be expected to make money off of it. You can volunteer at free events, you can volunteer where other people volunteer, but not be like, I'm gonna volunteer for this tech company.
Okay, where someone could be potentially, an American could be paid for it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So essentially you can't do anything where you could be taking a job away from an American.
Yeah, or even perceived as.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no, and what about side gigs? No, like, gig economy stuff? Uber?
Nothing. No money, no money, no money.
Money, please! Money.
No, there's no money.
I'll just destroy this office.
Yeah, you can own a business and you can get paid as long as you don't work for it.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
so you can invest?
You can invest
Be
and
a
be an
side-
owner, but you
okay.
can't be perceived as working for it.
But then you are getting paid for it.
Yes, but you're not employed by the company.
Yeah, because
Okay.
you're being a job creator, but you're not taking jobs away from somebody.
Well said.
So you can't be, basically you can never be on, like, a contractor, right? Can you contract your services for any, okay. So no 1099s available, got it.
Yep, they'll do two all the
Only.
way.
Yeah.
All the way, that's all you get.
Okay.
That and just free time that you can give away.
What did you learn in school today, dear little boy of mine?
I've had the H1 visa for 3.5 years, and I've started 3 podcasts, one of them within my company. There's no reason for you not to do shit. I know it sucks. I know it's hopeless at times.
I know. I was like, I'm just coming out of this. Yeah.
But you can still do it. There's people like you doing this stuff. You can get inspiration and actually do things that you think you can't. It can be done. It's going to be hard, but do it.
And if you need any inspiration, somebody to kick your ass and be like, just do it, hit one of us up. But
Yes.
yes, we
Just
shall.
don't hit this.
Don't hit me.
Yeah. She's gonna be like, why don't you just get a job?
I know.
Why don't you
Get
get married?
That was it. Thank you so much, Moby.
You're welcome.
This was
Thank
very,
you.
very insightful. I feel like a lot of people will understand more and they will stop cribbing like I used to.
And of course, we're not saying that this by any means is an easy journey. We completely empathize. I empathize. These guys have gone through it. You have options right here.
You do have options. Yeah, not as married stuff.
Well, this is our version of Purd Happily. Y'all heard with Purd.
Is this the end of the story? Or are we going to stop talking now?